The Bible clearly states that the flood destroyed all flesh on earth, every man, every creature, every corrupted being. And yet, after the flood, the Bible describes giants walking the land again. So the question is simple, but deeply unsettling. If the Nephilim were wiped out, why do giants reappear after the flood? Tonight, we will examine the exact biblical passages that raise this question calmly, carefully, and without speculation. In this video, you will see the verses most people avoid discussing, why ancient Israel feared certain bloodlines, and whether the Bible itself suggests the Nephilim may not have vanished forever. This is not theory. This is scripture compared with scripture. According to Genesis chapter 6, the Nephilim existed before the flood. They were described as mighty men of old, men of renown, born from a forbidden union that corrupted humanity. Because of this corruption, God sends the flood. Genesis seems clear, but the problem begins after the waters recede. Because centuries later, Israel encounters beings described with familiar language, giants, men of great size, terrifying in appearance, and the Bible never explains how they returned. It simply assumes the reader will notice. The word Nephilim appears explicitly only a few times in Scripture, but related terms appear often. Anakim, Rephaim, Emim, Zamzumim, each refers to unusually large, fearsome people often associated with ancient lands and divine judgment. The question is not whether giants existed. The question is, are these groups connected to the Nephilim of Genesis 6? Let's read Numbers chapter 13, verse 33. There we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers. This verse alone creates a theological shockwave, because it is spoken after the flood. Israel's spies claim they saw the Anakim, and they directly associate them with the Nephilim. Was this exaggeration born of fear, or does it preserve an ancient memory of something Israel did not fully understand? The Bible does not correct this statement, it simply records it. The Anakim were not treated as normal enemies. They were feared, they were avoided. And when Israel finally confronted them, God repeatedly commanded their destruction. Why such urgency? Why not assimilation, exile, or conquest? The language used mirrors earlier judgments. Judgments tied not just to sin, but to corruption. Now consider Og, king of Bashan. Deuteronomy chapter 3 tells us his bed was over 9 cubits long, approximately 13 feet. But more importantly, Bashan itself carried spiritual significance. Ancient texts associate Bashan with rebellion, death, and divine opposition. Og is described not just as a king, but as the last of the Rephaim. Again, the Bible offers no explanation of origin, only a conclusion. He was the last. Scholars and theologians generally acknowledge three possibilities. First, the post-flood giants were simply large humans, no connection to the Nephilim. Second, a genetic echo survived the flood through Noah's lineage. Third, a second corruption event occurred after the flood. The Bible does not explicitly confirm any of these, but it allows all three to exist within the text, and that silence is intentional. Scripture often explains what God did, not everything he prevented. The focus is always on obedience, judgment, and preservation of humanity. The Nephilim narrative is not about monsters, it is about boundaries being crossed. And whenever those boundaries reappear, judgment follows swiftly. Notice a pattern. Giants appear, fear spreads, God commands destruction, the bloodline disappears. This happens with the Anakim, the Rephaim, the descendants of Og. By the time David faces Goliath, the giants are already nearing extinction. One by one they fall. So, did the Nephilim exist after the flood? The Bible never gives a direct answer, but it leaves enough traces to make one thing clear: something returned, and it was never meant to remain. If you want biblical mysteries explained calmly, without speculation or exaggeration, consider subscribing, and ask yourself, if some things survived the flood, what else has history forgotten?